All right, you guys, our next project will be a relief study, and we are going to create a self-portrait skull tile, and it should include at least 3 symbols, there it is, about you. So here's one that I did. I'll try to get this up a little closer here. And I left half of mine unfinished here so that you could see, how I started this. I started with the overall slab. I drew a line around it. I cut it out on the line. And I'll explain kind of the process here in just a minute. But, I love food, so I created a symbol for food, and that's my pizza that I stuck on the forehead here. I love horned creatures and tusked creatures, so I put this little beetle right here, crawling out of the eye. Here's a paintbrush for a mustache here. And then I love the outdoors. I like nature. And so you can see I've put a little flower on his chin right here. I don't know if that shows up that well. There it is. So half of it I built up. This is the finished side right here. And we'll talk about how to finish this surface and get this kind of bone white with black accent finish after we create this tile. The thing to remember also is remember to place a hole at the top so this tile could be hung on the wall and displayed. And now we're going to discuss how to create slab to begin with and then build your skull portrait. Slice about a chunk off the top. I'd say like a 1-inch slab would be good. I'm just going to demonstrate several ways to do this. That's a lot of clay for what I'm about to do, so we're going to cut that in half. We've got some little wooden strips here. You could do this without the wooden strips, but these just ensure that your clay will come out as thick as the wood. And you could take a rolling pin and just start rolling the clay out. I'm going to put mine sideways. I had it going lengthwise, and it'll get longer but stay thin. If you want it to thicken up, you would move your strips apart, or if you're not using wooden strips, then just set it the other way so that you'll begin rolling that clay out the other direction. So this is one way to get a slab. This one will come out, I'd say that's probably a 1/4 inch thick. So you can see how that comes out. And of course, if you don't need a little extra pieces, you just slice those off. There you go. So that's one way to get a slab. So now I'm going to set this aside and take another piece, and you'll need your garage floor or the back patio to do this. This is called throwing a slab. So we're going to move this camera down to the floor. And what you're going to do is you're going to drop the slab. You don't want to throw it down because you'll never get it up off the ground. But you're just going to drop the slab. As you drop it, you'll pull your hands towards you So that momentum will just carry the clay towards you. So before I do that, I could probably flatten this just a little with my hand. This take longer if you had a ball of clay. So I'm going to just take this and drop it. And as I do, it elongates, it pulls towards me. And you can turn it and move it to get it to pull the direction you want. But there you go. There's about a 1/4 inch slab right there. And it's surprising how even that can come out just by throwing it on the ground. Usually there's a real fine layer of dust on a patio or a garage floor, cement floor. So it actually kind of helps this release. Again, don't throw this down real hard. Just drop it, but pull towards you as you let it go like that. So that's how you throw a slab. Now I'm going to move over to the slab roller. If you're here in the classroom, you can use the slab roller to roll a perfect slab. This is called the slab roller. It's got a big, giant, like captain's wheel here. And there are 2 pieces of canvas. So what you want to do is have one piece, make sure, sometimes people will roll it up and you have to turn this wheel to loosen the canvas. But that top piece of canvas should be on the wheel like this. And as you pull this back, it'll leave canvas on the bottom and canvas on above your clay. So you set your chunk of clay down here, and I usually set it kind of up against the wheel. And if it's too thick, then this won't be able to really grab onto it. So, you know, you can mash it down just a little, make it a little easier on yourself. And then you just turn the wheel. And steamroll right over the top of that. If you grab this fabric, you can actually just pull the whole thing back. And you can see you get a beautiful 1/4 inch. This is set for about a 1/4 inch thick slab, and this will work great for our relief skull self-portrait. To begin the skull self-portrait tile, you're going to need a slab made from one of the methods that I showed you. So you take this slab, and you're going to need some newspaper. I would say you're going to need like a full sheet and then a half a sheet. So 1 full sheet and a half a sheet. And you want to compress that into an egg shape. Kind of a big egg. I don't know if you can see that. Kind of an egg shape. And then you're going to set that right underneath your slab. Now you just take your hands, you kind of cup it like that, and you're going to just press that slab down around that newspaper. So that it hugs that little newspaper egg you put under there. So you'll get something like this. Should look something like that. Come back here a little. The light's a little bright, but you can see the newspaper underneath that's trapped underneath. So I'm going to take this and I've got the beginning of my skull. And you can take your stick, the flat side of your stick, and you can push this clay right down around your skull just to flatten that tile a little bit more. I'm going to bring that right down around my skull a little bit so it's not sloped. Okay. So now you can see how that skull just projects right up off the surface. It doesn't slope. And now I'm just going to kind of draw, about an inch. I'm going to draw a line about an inch around my skull. You could cut your tile any shape you want. Could be circular, could be square. And now I'm going to cut this. Needle tool works good if you have your needle tool. I'm just using the edge of my sculpting stick. Remove your scrap, put it back in your bag. Okay, close that up. Now you can see my tile hugs the contours of my skull. Okay, now at this point, we want to organize what we're about to do. And you could Google pictures of skulls from the front, the side, the back, but I'm drawing a line right up the center to divide the face in half. And I'm going to put my eye line right about in the middle. You might not think it, but our eyes are closer to the center of our heads. They're not clear up here on our foreheads. And then I'll make a nose line about 1.5 inches below that, and a mouth line about 1.5 inches below that. And now I can kind of see where I want my skull to go. I can take my thumbs and just push right in for the eye sockets. So I'm going to push into this skull, get that started. Use my fingers, my thumbs, whatever works. Almost looks like I've got one that's larger than the other, but I can adjust that later. So there's my eye sockets I've started. And now I'm going to take my stick and I'm going to use that pointy end and I'm going to press it in for half of the nose, then I'll turn it over, leave a little gap, and press it in for the other half, and that starts my nose. For my mouth, I'm going to just start by drawing kind of a cartoon scar. Now remember, you're going to use 3 symbols of your own making that you will include on this skull. I've even had people ask, can I do a cat skull, a longhorn skull, Texas longhorn, steer. If you love a particular creature or animal, I've had people do dragon skulls because that's something personal about you. That could certainly be one of your symbols. So you can see I've made this kind of cartoon scar for my mouth. And now I can start working on my teeth. I'm going to poke a little hole in between the bottom and the top set of teeth. And then I'll just use my stick to slowly start shaping. I'm going to push it in at the top of my teeth. And it'll slowly start giving my teeth kind of a more realistic look. So there it is. So I just push this tool in at the base between each tooth and at the top between each tooth. And that kind of separated the clay to make it look like teeth. So now I'm going to push in just below the cheekbones. So I'm going to push that in. That's going to make the mouth narrower. And that actually kind of sets me up to start my jaw. So I've just pushed in under the cheekbones. Now I'm going to push in at the temples, right on the sides of the eyes to narrow the skull. Leave that newspaper underneath it till this clay firms up a little bit. So now I've pressed in the temples, and you can see how my skull has started to develop. Now I can carve into this. I can cut those eyes right out. I can, you're also going to want to think about the texture or pattern of the tile itself. So the one I've showed you, I just turned my stick sideways and pressed into the tile. So you can see, you know, the texture of that stick. Heck, you could take the end of a tool. Here's a needle tool. I could create a pattern, you know, around my skull, something like this right here. And then you see what the side of the stick did here. You might even think about the very edge of your tile, because that's part of your piece too. So we want that to look like you've thought about that dimension. And I could even texture the very edge of my tile, just so that it all looks like I've made a conscious decision in its creation. So we leave that newspaper under there until this clay firms up a little. Keep carving, keep working. Right here between the eyes, I'm going to push that in because we're not usually, you know, real heavy between the eyes. Right there, it actually kind of dents in right here on my skull. And I could take a piece of scrap and even build above the nostrils a little. I'm going to roll a little coil, and I'm going to kind of taper it on the ends, and I'm going to fold this in half. Kind of fold it so that it looks like a little wishbone or an up, you know, there's a V there. I'm going to just scratch up the surface above my nose, and I'm going to lay some slip on that. And I'm going to put this upside down V right at the top of my nose. And you can see how that's going to make that nose stick out. And now I'll blend that in very carefully. It's a small piece of clay, so you don't want to be too heavy-handed. But this is how you just slowly start building your piece up. You can add your symbols to the forehead, the chin, put something in the eyes there. I'm getting that clay worked into my nose, and then I'm taking this pointy end of my stick, and I'm just slowly working this clay to make it look a little more natural, give it a little dimension. I could even cut this mouth right open. I'll just cut right between my teeth here and put something in. I'm going to cut out just under my cheekbone. I'm going to hollow, there it is right there, hollow that out. So I'm just going to follow up behind that last tooth I did, cut that out, cut it to the newspaper that's behind it. But I could cut this mouth right open. So I just sliced right in between that mouth and I could open that up. Heck, I could have a snake crawling out of that mouth. I could put a basketball in there or some instrument, whatever symbol is personal to you. Leave that newspaper in there. Once this is leather hard, when it starts to firm up and it holds its shape, it's not, you can't press it and shape it anymore, but it's still the same dark gray color. Then you can pop that newspaper out. If I pull this newspaper out too soon and I'm pushing and carving on this, I'm going to end up smashing my skull, pushing it, caving it in. So that's how you get this skull portrait started. And again, you'll add your symbols to this. I might have one or two. The one I showed you has a piece of pizza, so I kind of drew where I wanted that on his forehead with a needle tool. And then I just started adding pepperonis in the crust, and I put a beetle in the eye and a flower on the chin. So add to and cut into the clay to make the surface as interesting as possible. And that's how you're going to begin your self-portrait skull tile, a study in relief sculpture.